Guys, welcome back to the Discovering Eden podcast. My name is Brandon, and we are once again back. Hopefully, the audio is a little bit fixed based on what it is before. I turned Jonathan up, I turned up the volume on my computer so my GoPro right here. Hi guys, can pick up what he's saying because when I listen back to it, I'm like, oh no, that's a problem. So hopefully this is a lot better for you guys. And Jonathan will lead us into prayer, and then we'll get right into it.
Just distance and remotely now. We just need to get opportunities to be able to talk about the word to dive into the study of creation. We just pray for your guidance and the wisdom as we engage in this conversation, Lord.
Amen. All right, we'll get into the bumper, and then we'll get right into it. It's the bumper. Bumper. What?
Recording what you're saying.
No, it's no. Because I don't have any of the other end sources here. And we're back. Back in black. Okay. All right, so kind of from preview of last week, Cain kills Abel. That's your preview. Yep, that happened. So then from that, I'm gonna go into verses 9 through 16, and we're gonna continue. We read the whole chapter last week, but now we focused in on the first 8 verses the first week, or I say the first week. This is actually a huge series, so the first week of chapter 4. There we go. So I'm gonna read verses 9 through 16, and this is from the NASB version. So, all right. So then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Then he said, and he being God, because capital H, he. Then he said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. Now you're cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you cultivate the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a wanderer and a drifter on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to endure. Behold, you have driven me this day from the face of the ground, and I will be hidden from your face. And I will be a wanderer and a drifter on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." So the Lord said to him, "Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him 7 times as much." And the Lord placed a mark on Cain, so that no one finding him would kill him. Then Cain left the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Thoughts? What stands out to you?
There is. So I did read before we recorded this time. So there's actually quite a bit that stands out. As we were reading, I was highlighting one. Comes out is verse 11, where it says, "First in the ground, which opened its mouth." And I'm not reading the ASFD, I'm reading the first in the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. And then verse 2, "Which into the ground will no longer yield its crops to you, you will be a restless wanderer in the earth." section about the curse and the results of that stands out. But it's the one I'm the most interested in discussing, so I'll say towards the end. So we're going to jump towards the end of the passage. So verse 15 also stands out. Mark and King, basically, you know, tell you sort of deal. That mention of the land that he's doing another mention, geographical, stands out a little bit. The thing that stands out the most is verse 13 and 14. But understand is more than I can spend your time with the land. From your presence, I will be a restless wonder in the earth. With finds me will kill me. Specifically that last bit, and whoever finds me will kill me. I was talking with one of the that I work with from Victor, who is that we do a podcast. And he brought up a good point, and I think that whoever finds me will kill me. What is he talking about? Because the story when it's one day Adam and Eve were the first, and then you continue there. So I think that's the question that it's just an interesting discussion point. Who is God's chosen, you know, because people who are, you know, after I don't know. It's very interesting.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Not that I have necessarily anything to add to it, but we can discuss it when we kind of walk through the passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of those kind of same things kind of stood out to me. I focused in on like, am I my brother's keeper? Different things like that. The blood crying out, and again, kind of the curses that you brought up as well. And then I also focused in on verse 16 and what nod means. But we can get into that. So we'll just start from the top and work our way down. So the thing that stood out to me was Cain's response to God. And obviously, the question that God asks of Cain is, "Where is your brother Abel?"
Yeah.
And basically, Cain answers with, "Why should I care?"
Yeah. And my brother's keeper.
So it's kind of ignoring God's question. He didn't answer the question. He's just like,
He kind of just pushed it away.
he kind of pushed it away, pushed it to the side, saying, "I don't really care what you have to ask because I don't really care. Am I supposed to look after my brother?" Kind of like in a snide kind of.
Yeah.
That's almost what it seems like. But in his response, in essence, it gives that Cain doesn't have any remorse for what he did. So he took out his brother. God gives him an opportunity to kind of speak your case, if you will, saying, "Where is he? What happened?" And Cain doesn't comply. He doesn't say anything. He's like, "Why should I care?" I mean, that's not what he says, but that's kind of what it gives to me, or how it reads. Do I have to? I don't have Life 360 on my brother. I'm sorry. But even if he kind of would know because he kind of disposed of him, probably. Uh, so, but that's besides the point. It's Cain's response there, and then God returns with the curse. And kind of looking back at chapter 3 a little bit, the ground was already cursed, and
Yeah.
now it's a direct curse onto Cain himself. So expounding upon. So the ground, because it was soaked in the blood of Abel, it's like, congratulations, you made it so that it's even harder for you to grow crops and everything.
Right.
But let's take a little bit of a closer look into the blood crying out. So let me ask you something. How does
Mhm.
blood cry out? And how does God hear that? And if you don't know, you don't know.
I'll take a shot in the dark. Give me a second to think about what the dark is going to be.
And it's okay to not it's okay to not have a good answer. I'm just doing a hard question.
Yeah. I would assume I think the reason you know, you're crying out is because he's the creator. He would naturally know something. You know, something. Shot in the dark. I don't even know what's the.
Well, I'm not saying it because I know a definitive answer. I just threw a question out there. But like you hear, it's phrasing that you hear kind of throughout the Bible, like the rocks and streams will cry out, like all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And this is the blood will cry out. And like you were saying, I do think it's because, God has made everything. And so everything has a song that they sing up and worship to God. It's just done in different ways. And, when we think of worship, we think of, oh, well, you have to be living to, worship. But, and yet, how is it that Jesus can tell the wind to stop and it stops? Everything has a call and response when it comes to God.
Right.
So, in essence, like rocks, streams, blood, everything like that, all connects back into, you know, God the Father. So that's my little thing. I mean, it's similar, and there's not a definitive right or wrong answer here. It's just kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. But let's look at blood. So, historically and culturally, blood's kind of important. You often hear things like life stream, lifeblood, um, or other such phrases, often connecting with the soul. Uh, so, in essence, you almost have like the the felling of blood, like blood being spilled, is the crying out of a soul.
Right.
Is in one way to kind of read it, especially with historical and cultural significance. So again, you read it as the soul is crying out in that sense. So the blood's crying out. No, the soul of Abel is crying out. So the ground so the ground was already cursed, and then it was defiled further by murder. So that's not good. and further was kind of stained in sin. And then there was a particular tidbit that I found out while researching, um, and it alludes to Hebrews 12:24, and
Okay.
is the it mentions kind of the crying blood of Abel here in relation to Jesus and his blood sacrifice. So there's things that were passed down like with Jewish scholars, different biblical scholars, that was said, and that you find later kind of alluded to in the book of Hebrews. And when I was looking through some of the commentaries, this one in particular stood out. It's Ellicott's commentary for English readers. And I'm just going to read it, and then we can kind of jump in kind of as responses to it. So this is what it says. So the sight Cain has seen of death clings to him and grows into a terror, and from above the voice of Jehovah tells him that the blood he has shed calls aloud for vengeance. Which, caveat, this is not given in the passage. You don't get any semblance of vengeance from
Mhm.
reading. This is to be inferred, as elsewhere it's alluded to, but this also relates to kind of this biblical scholarly view of things that were passed down that you don't necessarily see in the biblical text, but it is through different tradition and traditional beliefs. So there's my caveat. Caveat done. All right, continuing. So, thus, with the first shedding of human blood, the ominous thought sprang up, divinely bestowed, that the earth will grant no peace to the wretch who has stained her fair face with the life stream of man. But the blood of Jesus speaketh better things than that of Abel. And this is from Hebrews 12:24. So let me say that again. But the blood of Jesus speaketh better things than that of Abel. So the souls that are crying out there, and this is me. Souls that are crying
Mhm.
out, one is very different than the other. So continuing. The voice of one cried for justice and retribution, the other for reconciliation and peace. That is the end of the commentary. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really interesting. In that commentary, it, it's really hard because it's, you know, just like the voice of one cried for justice, retribution, the other for reconciliation and peace.
It really brings everything full circle to me when I read that.
it really, yeah, that's it's really interesting to see it, from each perspective, and it just brings it full circle. It's even important to obviously,
The ultimate sacrifice, which is Jesus.
yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that was definitely something that stood out for me because I like my mind, I guess, focuses on some of the weird things maybe, and then I look into it further, and then it's like, oh my goodness. Um, because I'm also looking at things in a different perspective as well, looking at it in a trying to find things culturally and historically that make sense as well. But you know, obviously there is still a tie all the way to Jesus because, well, Jesus ties and calls back all the way back to Genesis. So,
Yeah,
especially with Jesus being kind of known as the second Adam, he's the completion of what once was and is to come. It's because Adam was imperfect and fell in his imperfectness. And from that imperfection came Cain. And then everything kind of follows from there. But you can even see that Abel wasn't perfect either because well what does his blood cry out for? Vengeance, retribution. Now it doesn't say that in the
Yeah.
Bible, but it's inferred, especially when you
Right.
read Hebrews 12 again, because it's like the blood they said different things, which I'm like if you're coming in from an outside standpoint, you see what happened to Abel and his blood's crying out retaliation, revenge, I want justice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, to be honest, you see that like you can completely understand because you look at anything in the justice system today that's a lot of very similar things like you hear like one of the common phrases you hear is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, that kind of thing. That's just an idiom that's from I want to say is it Koto Hammurabi? I don't know
Yeah.
it.
Go to Hammurabi.
Yeah, but it's way back there. It's like Sumerian, Mesopotamian.
Yeah.
But see, that's just kind of been around. So revenge is definitely something that's ingrained within, I think, humanity and its identity through sin. Um, and I think it's in large part because of what happens here with Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that. That stood out.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's really interesting.
and then let's see. I have in my notes that yeah. So the verses 11 through 15, which is the curse on Cain, it marks the first direct curse on an individual in the Bible. So the other ones were pretty generic, like the first three. You could argue maybe the first one was technically directed at the enemy or Satan.
Yeah.
So maybe that was direct, but it wasn't direct still because it's still kind of implied. Like it was kind of the mix of the physical spiritual thing.
Right.
Whereas this one seems very physical in nature. Or at least that's what the curse gives. Like everything's gonna be hard. You're not gonna like you won't even like death won't even be a comfort to you.
Yeah.
Or you'll get death eventually, but in here let's go into your kind of observation or at least your coworkers
Yeah.
of the whoever like who is the
Yeah.
whoever will find me will kill me kind of thing what Cain says. So how long and this is kind of like my kind of talking point here. How long did Cain live?
To be honest, but there's that way. I can't remember. Right so far, it doesn't specify anybody's age at this point.
No. And I don't know if does it. Let's see.
I mean,
No.
I got Google. Let me.
Well, we can see because I don't think it actually specifies how old Cain is because there are no numbers
And
with
I don't
Cain.
say. I mean,
No, but and I'm going a little bit into uh, the next chapter a little bit with five.
Yeah.
We have Adam. Well, so just to have an idea of how long Adam lived, and I'm more of the belief that these are accurate ages. Sure, there could be a debate as to what they could or could not be. We're just sticking right now with the fact that these are the ages.
Yeah.
So let's see. So Adam lived for 930 years,
Yeah. It's easy to think that, you know,
and Seth, Cain's brother, lived for 912. So it'd be probably safe to assume somewhere around 900 years. Now it doesn't okay, because it was 130 years when Seth was born. So Adam was 130 supposedly when Seth was born. It doesn't specify when Abel was born, doesn't specify when, you know, Cain was born, but it also says and I know I'm going a little bit forward here. And this is chapter 5 verse 4, for example. I'll do 4 and 5. So then the days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and then he died. He had other sons and daughters. They're just not mentioned because this is following the lineage up to Jesus. So there's other sons and daughters out there. It just specifies, well, when he was 130, he had Seth. And we know Cain and Abel became before Seth because when Seth was named, it's because he was the quote unquote replacement child of Abel. So that's something to keep in mind. And for the whole genealogy of all of chapter 5, all of the things say that of other sons and daughters and other sons and daughters and other sons and daughters. So there's more than just that. We don't know when. Like, for example, we don't know when, you know, God spoke to Cain or whatever about where's your brother. You would assume it's immediately following. But who knows? They could have had like siblings at that point. I don't know. You don't know because it doesn't specify. It just specifies there's others. It could have been after Seth, so who knows? But it's an interesting point because even culturally, like, and this kind of goes toward, okay, were they actually the only people there? Like, were Adam and Eve the only people that were created, and then from them it can went to a bunch, or they're like different pockets, if you will? And Adam and Eve
point I,
being, yeah.
yeah.
So those are kind of some leading ideas as to what it is. For me, I don't really know. I mean, I've always grown up knowing or believing that Adam and Eve were the first two, and then from them came everybody else. Um, but like even you hear whoever, which implies plurality,
Mhm.
but like part of the whoever could also be Adam and Eve. We also know there's angels around because you have the cherubim guarding the garden. So there's other angels. This is also the time where Nephilim were on the earth from fallen angels and stuff like that, if we go with that theory. So there's also whomever could also mean not human.
Right. It's
It,
generic enough to where
we assume humanity because of the nature of how everything goes. But we also know from reading a little bit further into the story, it's not just humans that are around the planet. So that's something to also keep in mind. I know we talked about it in the creature series when we did that
yeah,
with our we had the three eames and then we had the three cultural eames, we'll call it. Like with Nagas and different things like that, like how you see them in other cultures or potentially what they could have been. So that's my observation. I'm not saying it's true or false or whatever, but that's my idea of what the whomever can be. It's not directly human, although we assume it is, which it could still be human, but I think there's more to it than that. Anyway, anything else around the curses and everything? Anything
well,
else that stands out?
it's specific to the first, so
Okay, then I will continue on mine. So, what does God curse here? He curses the ground, the soil. What was Cain's job?
it was specific to his life. And
Yeah, so every single time you pick up the till and everything, you're going to be reminded of everything you've done. And you're going to work for it. You're going to work even harder for it. And it's going to be tough. Yeah, his very job, which is working the soil for sustenance, was made into his enemy. It was already hard before, and then it was made harder. So he'll wander, and not even death will come to him by others. He's going to be burdened with the guilt and recognition for what he did. And whether he accepts it or not is an entirely different thing. And that the Bible at this point does not say. We'll dive into that conversation deeper as we go into next week, but but yeah, it's tougher. And then I have something for verse 16 when we get there. Do you want to talk about anything before then? So I'm leaving the floor. I'm opening up the floor to you.
yeah, he said 16, verse 16.
Yes, because I'm going to talk about Nod.
Yeah, which is one of the things that stood out to me. The only thing that stands out before is that if he said Mark, these things that no one found it would kill him. I think that's
Okay, well, let's talk about it for a bit then. So to me, the immediate thing that stands out is it's kind of echo back, or I should say echo forward to Revelation and the Mark of the Beast.
yeah.
Except obviously this is a mark that spares him from death. But then again, what does the Mark of the Beast do? It, but at the same time, one's given by God, one's given by the enemy. So it's like, obviously, it's not exactly the same thing.
No, yeah, I can see that. I can see what you're getting at. Yeah,
But then you kind of go into, okay, so what would the mark be? Like, how would you know?
right. I don't know. And that's interesting. Is that something to be so universally recognized. Um, if it weren't to be, it would be like, okay, there's this guy.
Like, I know I hear the conspiracy theory sometimes of like, oh, what's the mark of the beast? Oh, it's putting a QR code and tattooing it on your
Yeah,
arm or something like that, or having a chip or something in your thing to like
right.
swipe. Oh, look, here's my credit card information or whatever. I don't know. Those are conspiracy theories. They could be whatever. Um, and I don't know why I'm thinking of this necessarily. Like Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, like his face, it has a visible mark, like a quite literal physical mark that you can definitely identify. Hey, he went through something. I don't know whether that's the mark of a physical ailment. I don't know whether it's a physical representation of a mark. It just says mark, which doesn't tell me a whole lot.
No,
I mean, I guess we could look at it. I probably should have brought this up for the, but I didn't.
you know,
I'm gonna briefly go into Bible Hub here,
yeah,
and we're
the reason that you brought is obviously given by the enemy, and this one was given by God. It's it just sparked this reminder in me of how sometimes the enemy will use things that might be like seen as good, what you would have your desire, but it only brings and as a result. So that's just an interesting thought.
okay. Let's see. Looking at the Hebrew for it right now. Oh, 79 occurrences. Let's see. Is there an occurrence in Revelation? Well, I mean, technically Revelation's in Greek, not Hebrew, but so what it means is it's a sign, token, mark, or miracle. Wow, mark can mean mark. Awesome. No, I mean, it's technically oath. Is that's the OTH oath. So yeah, sign, an omen, a token, a mark, a miracle, a signal.
Some of the synonyms for Mark.
Well, miracle is kind of interesting, but and then that kind of reminds me of Moses being in the presence of God and that his face was kind of lighting up like a light bulb, or like because he's in the presence of God, his face was shining with light, and that what you would
Yeah,
maybe call like a miracle, but you could also call it a mark, marked by God.
yeah.
So and obviously this is spitballing. What if it's something similar, or maybe instead of light, it's darkness? I don't know. I've heard stories of people who can, or people that have seen into the spiritual realm, or different things like that. You can see light, you can see darkness, you can see, you know kind of like if you consider like there's a light bulb above your head, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
that light bulb is shining bright like white. Sometimes they're in different colors, and other times it's pitch black.
Sure.
Is the way it's been described to me, or what you would call like an aura. Like you have like an aura around you. Like sometimes like people that are holy have like a light element that kind of surrounds them, and obviously vice versa, the opposite. For people who are not so holy, different things like that, or I don't know. So I don't know whether that means it was just visible and seen by other people,
Sure.
because I can say with certainty I don't think I've seen anybody with a face that just shines with light.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to put like a veil over your face. So I haven't seen anybody that experienced a Moses experience or in other way. I don't know. Other things when I think of Mark is I think of the person in the New Testament that was kind of he had a legion of demons in him. You're definitely set apart. You can like there's different signs that you can see. Like what does the mark mean? Well, the mark could be signs, different things. So you could whether that be supernatural strength or whatever that may be. Now, what we do know of Cain, Cain was, strong. He was kind of more like warrior type, if you will. I mean, his name means spear. So, and conquest and everything, as we'll go into next week, is kind of Cain's legacy of kind of destruction and all that kind of stuff that kind of flows from him. So, I don't know whether that could be the mark.
Sure.
And obviously, Cain has a lineage as well. Does that lineage entail possibly the Nephilim? I don't know.
Good.
But that's not the discussion for this week. That's just a little side commentary, so no extra charge for you guys. So I'm going to go into verse 16. So reading it again, it is then Cain left the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Now, let us go to this, and I know it's gonna be blank a little bit. Sorry, guys. I'm doing this. So, bing, boom, pow. All right. So, obviously, things are a little bit different. So, I'm showing a screen here of kind of the general area of where this is the Middle East. This is kind of, you're looking at the Mesopotamia basically right now, and with the Garden of Eden kind of being on the Persian Gulf start, if you will. So, east of Eden. Where is east of Eden? If you're, I know you have to zoom in a little bit. So, to the west of Eden would be desert, basically. Or to us now, it would be desert. There technically would have been a river that went due west from presumably where Eden would have been. So it would have been probably a little bit more green than it looks on there. Well, due west, or not due west, due east are mountains. And it's interesting that they're mountains. So when you think
Sure.
of the curse a little bit, so it'll be hard for you to, work the soil and everything. Obviously, it's a little harder than the Fertile Crescent that they were already
Yeah.
in. So they're kind of bumped out of Eden a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit harder, obviously. And then God already knows what direction Cain's going to go. He heads toward the mountains. Well, guess what? It's going to be harder for you to tend the soil, work the soil. Here's your curse. So that's fascinating. And here, let me bring it back. So I gotta go do. Look at that. Boom, we're back. So that's something. Now, here's an interesting bit of information. Nod. The word nod, it implies that it's a place here, but it also means wandering.
Yeah. Interesting.
So the word nod means wandering. It comes from the root word nude. And no, not the other. Not noodles, not anything like that. No. Uh it can mean wandering or vagrancy is how nod specifically is it. So the act of kind of wandering and traversing around seemingly in circles. Um not necessarily in circles, but I'm just saying that like the gears are still turning, but he's kind of sitting within it. So if you read it again, you could also read it like this. So then Cain left the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of wandering east of Eden, in a perpetual state of wandering, not having anywhere to call
Yeah.
home, whatever. Obviously, that changes in the next section that we read. But yeah, so the Zagros Mountains are to the east. Uh, and there's other thing. See, this is where it's like I could say other things, but I'm not going to because I'm saving them for when we revisit again. But I want to say it so bad, but I can't. Or I shouldn't. It's not that I can't. It's just so kind of summing things up. In essence, Cain settled in his wanderings. He forever wandered. Whether that's forever wandering in here with the guilt and everything that happened, or just physical wandering, kind of nomadic.
Yeah, no, that almost that means it almost repurposes a lot of the passage. I think completely off base here. Earlier when he said the latest wandering, and she said kind of go no anything, no anything. Um, his fear because he doesn't have any specific ties to any people group or play any role in it, you think, or completely
Like, are you thinking like it could be like a fear of being alone?
something like that. You know, like he's a wanderer and is constantly on the move. There's no real ties to that. Well, he did have a wife and had kids, and so again, maybe I'm just spitballing something that's but other people this fear initially could have been if I see me with zero ties to anyone and they're gonna take advantage of that and kill me or it's just a random thought that popped into my head and again to be completely
Well, I mean, that kind of ties into why he felt the need that strength was important, where he felt like he was gonna, someone's out to get him, basically.
yeah.
which God says no one's out to get you, but you're condemned.
Yeah.
So Cain's almost in this perpetual state of fear of because someone's out to get me because I did wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here's another thing, like going to the root word of what nod is. So this is the nude. Uh, so what this means is to get away or flee, which is another interesting thing if you kind of put it into context of what nod is here. They're fleeing. So
Mm-hmm.
Cain's fleeing God at that point. So kind of again alluding to possibly the fear aspect of God's out to get me. I don't know whether that's true or not because it's nod, not nude. Uh, but
Right.
the base word is the same. And that's why you have like the vagrant aspect of it in nod. But it's an opposite of dwelling. So it's a state of not dwelling, if you will. So it's tumultuous is probably a good way of putting it. In aspect of in the mind from spirituality standpoint. Physical standpoint, you're
Yeah.
always moving around. But I think in a spiritual frame point, everything's it's a bunch of white water in here. It's a lot of rapids. Everything's flowing pretty quickly, and then because I know when you think of like for me, my mind wanders. So wandering again, it's in that same thing of when I think of something like, oh, I did something really stupid. Sometimes you reflect on it and then you continue to dwell on it and continue to constantly keep moving, which makes I mean, when I'm talking, I'm like, I say dwell, and I'm like, well, if this is the opposite of dwelling, but we're whatever. Anyway, you're constantly moving. Like, we know that our minds can sometimes go a million miles an hour. Imagine if you're stuck with that
Right.
for 900 years. You would get pretty paranoid, I would think. If you're thinking someone's out to get you for 900 years, uh, probably not conducive to your health
Mm-hmm.
or state of being, state of mind, anything of the sort. And you see a whole different kind of civilization grow up out of that, which is in direct opposition to what God's intention was. And you see that with
Right.
the compare contrast to the genealogy you see in chapter 5 following Seth versus a brief little genealogy of Cain. Although it doesn't give numbers or anything for Cain and his legacy. But those are just some thoughts.
Yeah.
Any other last remarks, comments, thoughts?
Mm. Give me like 1 second to double check. I don't think so, but no.
I have a little bit, but not much.
I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Yeah. So I have some more stuff about the Zagros Mountains, but so this is
Sure.
my geology side coming out. So geologically, Zagros Mountains uh, have salt domes and other geologic structures. So even further to make it hard to grow things is well, you can't really grow it in salt all that well. So they may have been hard to till and grow food, yet in the midst of the mountains, life can still thrive. So God's you have to work for it, but you can still have it. You can still sustain life. You can even see this in the forest steppe biome in the Zagros Mountains, and it carries a lot of life. There's a lot of plants, animals that are there. So, kind of as a reminder that even in the midst of Cain's wandering, God still grants opportunities for life to thrive and flourish. Just like you see in the biome of the forest steppe in the Zagros Mountains. Life can still thrive. It takes effort to grow there. Like there's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of things that you have to take care of, or like you have to have a certain your needs have to be met in a certain way, or all that kind of thing. Everything has to almost click together, but things can work.
Right.
Like life can still happen. Like you can still move forward. So there's still hope for Cain in that, even after everything he's done. But it's because Cain kind of flees in fear and doesn't come back is a whole nother thing.
Right.
Because you don't see a reconciliation from Cain. You don't see him come back. It's at that point he leaves. He's gone. He doesn't return. He continues to wander. He doesn't ask for forgiveness, nothing. He flees in fear. Or at least from what I gathered, in fear. And then when I'm thinking of the wandering, also brings into mind who wrote this? Moses. Moses wrote the book of Genesis. What would he have been fresh off of and still doing?
Under.
Yeah, I think this would have been very impactful for
Yeah.
the Israelites who would be reading this. Because guess what you were doing? Yep, you read and understand what you know, and that's a very important aspect of this. Moses' audience at the time were the Israelites, and when this was written, Exodus, like in the midst of all the years that they were spent wandering, that's when this was written. Not written after the fact, not written before the fact, during the wandering. So the amount they could probably relate to Cain is quite a lot. And I think even to Moses specifically, because what does he do? Well, he killed a man and fled and eventually came back to Egypt to set his people free and then left again to again wander. Even Moses' testimony here is powerful, considering everything he was going through. And that's something that, when you first read, say, this is verse 16 of chapter 4 of Genesis. And I'm relating it all throughout everything Moses is attributed to writing, which is the Pentateuch, first 5 books of the Bible. So his audience would have been different, but I even look at it and saying, like, Moses is writing this himself. He's like, I see myself in Cain. I went through the same things, but then what Moses can do is he can throw the but God. God called out to me with the burning bush. Or was Cain's burning bush? He didn't really have one. Or was that moment for him? He didn't have one. Or he never searched, never looked. It's different things like that that stand out to me. I'm not saying one thing's right or wrong. It's just That's what I picture when I read it, especially knowing kind of the context and everything behind it. I'll leave the rest of what I have on there out. We can talk about that later. But yeah, those are my last little thoughts. So, any other last minute thoughts or dwellings? There's a lot packed in there. It's just unpacking it.
Just something reading. It is crazy because I mean, just get like the details that you're
Well, and there are things that yeah, because there are things that we would typically overread. Like you wouldn't think twice about it. Like blood crying out, you wouldn't really think to dive into that or nod, for example. Oh, it's just a location.
yeah,
There's a lot more there. You just have to find it, and this is why you hear the Bible being talked about as a living, breathing word of. It's the living, breathing word of God because you can get something new from it each time you read of it. It depends on what like. Sometimes it depends on what circumstances you're going through, different experiences you've had, people that you're talking with, just anything like that. And God can reveal different things at different times, depending on when or whenever you read it. Like, that's why, Christians, we ought to, read the Bible different, like constantly, because you're going to learn something new about it each time. But I think so
right.
often for our own culture in the church, where the biblical literacy I don't think is very high because people they've lost the curiosity. They've lost
Yeah,
the desire to kind of dig into the word and really discover what God has to say to them or what God wants to speak to them about. Most people don't even remember some of the stories, or like if I said Gideon, would people know who Gideon is? Or, Samson. Especially, I see this particularly with the Old Testament, where
yeah,
I think the Old Testament just gets forgotten, even though to me it's one of the most pivotal and important things in all of Scripture because we can't have the New Testament without the Old Testament. There's an order to
right.
things. And once you understand the full, complete picture, is when things become a lot more easier to comprehend. Because how I look at it, you almost have like a call and a response. But anyway, here's my little soapbox. I'm done. All right. And then I think that'll be it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, you can join us again. Hopefully, the audio is a little bit better. So, please. All right. I think this will be it. So, that is all. Peace out.
Adios, guys.
See you.